hello, hello.
Yo.
All right.
Here we go.
We got Brad Gilmore on the phone.
What up, y'all?
What's going on, sir?
This is going to be our test episode, SLM podcast. Let's get that background track. So that's one thing we need to fix is the volume of that background music there. Brad, we appreciate you last minute joining us here on the podcast.
You know I'm here for you guys, man, whatever y'all need me.
There you go.
Thank you. It was promoted. Kevin Bernhardt was supposed to be on the show tonight. He couldn't make it. He got stuck out of town. So last second, we got Mr. Brad Gilmore here.
One of the best.
Brad,
really the more preferable choice. I mean, you know, I got love for Kevin.
Right.
But he's a jabroni. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Let him stay out wherever he's going to do.
Exactly.
You know,
Hey, Brad, we were just talking before the show. We were working with Booker T and Reality Wrestling before it was Row, back when it was PWA. And we were trying to remember when you joined Reality of Wrestling. When was that when you started working with us?
Man, so it wasn't with PWA. I think it was about 2 months into the changeover to Reality of Wrestling.
Okay.
And it was November 2012 was my first show.
We were trying to get that date. We couldn't remember, but yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it was November 2012. And I guess for a second, maybe, because I didn't see y'all until a few shows down the road, I think. There was a guy named Justin who was doing some stuff for us at the time.
Yes.
Then he stepped away, and then when y'all came in, here's the thing, and I'm not one to speak illy of anybody, and Justin did a phenomenal job, but you know, like with music and everything else, especially production, it's about a vibe.
Exactly.
You know, you got to vibe with people, and I think when y'all came in, I started working with Kevin, and really y'all were our main production team. The vibe felt right.
Well, that's good.
You know what I mean?
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
definitely.
for sure. So yeah, it's been 8 years, man. I just did my 8-year show,
Nice.
8-year anniversary show with the Reality Wrestling guys on this last drive-in show that we did. So yeah, man, still trugging along.
Man, nice, perfect.
Kick off some of the stuff we want to talk about here. First off is, of course, the support local music news. As you know, we've let you know the past few years. We have had the Support Local Music Award Show each December. This year was supposed to be our 5th year. It was going to be the big 5-year.
Right.
It's going to be a big event. Of course, COVID has, changed everybody's life. So we have to announce that the 5th anniversary SLM Award Show has been postponed due to the COVID situation. The sponsors did not want to do a show where we could not have 100% capacity.
Exactly.
So the only thing we can do is wait. We're possibly looking at maybe summertime. If not summer, then it's going to have to be postponed all the way until next year. Yeah. Next December is where we'll have the 5th. But there are some things in the works about a possible showcase. We will let everybody know within the next few days if we can pull this off, where all of the artists that were supposed to perform at the award show is going to be performing streaming live. And we can do at least the SLM Awards showcase for the artists who are going to perform. So we'll let everybody know that here within the next few days. The SLM documentary, which we have been working on for the past few months, is still going on.
Okay.
What that is just a retrospect of 2020 and how the music stopped.
Right.
And that's something, Brad, you can jump in here too, because it stopped wrestling as well. It stopped the live events. What was something you and Booker were discussing at times when you guys had to figure out, were you going to try and do something like the drive-in shows, or were you just going to hold off until you guys could do shows live in the arena again?
Well, wrestling was a really interesting industry when it came to the shutdown of COVID and everything, because WWE they never stopped. They never stopped. They didn't have 1 week off. They continued on throughout the entirety of this thing. Now, obviously, they didn't have fans,
right?
And they still don't have fans, but they never stopped. So we took a break for, I think, about maybe it was like 6-7 weeks, maybe a little longer, maybe 8 weeks.
Okay.
And then I talked to Booker and Kevin, and we were like, we have to at least start filming stuff down at the gym,
right?
Without any fans in attendance. So as it is with music, it's the same with wrestling. So much of it is dependent upon the reaction from the crowd. With wrestling, everything's dependent upon the reaction of the crowd.
Correct. Yes,
literally
sir.
everything that you do. So to not have that, it's very interesting. To me, it's almost I liken it to a comedian going out there and telling jokes with no crowd.
Yeah.
You have no feedback.
Exactly.
You have no idea what's funny. It's the same thing when a rapper goes out there and he hits a hot 16 and he thinks that he just hit a sweet punchline, but there's no crowd to let him know, to boo him off the stage or to cheer him on so he can go again.
Got to have that interaction.
You got to have that interaction. So it was difficult. That's when we said, okay, well, what about a drive-in show? And it was this, I think we had heard some comedian was doing them around the country. He was doing drive-in shows, and it seemed feasible. If anybody's ever been to the World Gym Arena where we tape our television, the parking lot's rather massive, right? I mean, it's a good space. We thought that we could pull it off, and here's the thing, man. When it comes to if we can do it, that's out of my ballpark. I'm just the guy who comes with the idea. Yeah. Hey, what if we do this? And then Kevin and you all and Charmel, they got to figure out the logistics, but I can come up with the idea. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, like with the SLM Awards or the Artist Showcase or with anything, man, we had so many projects cooking at the time when COVID hit. They really derailed a whole lot of plans. And it's just, we're not, but as you know, we're not unique.
Right.
It happened, like you said, Tony, to everybody. Yeah. You know what I mean? It happened to everybody. So it's just one of those things.
Wow.
So going through the Rockets, the Texans, and the Astros, the Rockets made a lot of drama and a lot of moves. The first stuff coming out was Harden, Westbrook requesting trades. Stuff came up that they weren't happy with the owner and his support of Donald Trump. Then moves started being made. There were a lot of talks about trading Harden. But when you're going to trade a guy who has been up for the MVP the last 3-4 years, you need to receive an MVP back.
Bottom line.
Yeah. And there just hadn't been a trade good enough to come through for it.
Right.
So as of right now, Harden and Westbrook are on the team. The Rockets have picked up Sterling Brown, who I think is a huge pickup for them. The other two big picks, of course, were Cousins and Christian Wood.
There we go.
Christian Wood is a guy that's on the very edge of all-star material. And Cousins, if we can get 80% out of Cousins of what he can do, that's huge.
Exactly. Big.
We'd be in great shape.
Yeah.
The Houston Rockets is my favorite sports organization of all time, and I got the privilege, even in this odd season, to be able to cover the Rockets for ESPN radio here in Houston. Got to attend the game, stand on the hardwood, watch them as close as you possibly can get without purchasing a ticket, and I will tell you, I love the game. I love the sport. Nice. I was sitting in the audience when Russell Westbrook was first introduced to the Houston sports arena, right? When he was first introduced to the Rockets, I was sitting right there front row. And I was excited, right? And early on in the season, I didn't look so excited. It didn't look like the Russ was the Russ that we needed. Now, through the stretch, though, after we made the Capella trade, we picked up Robert Covington.
Right.
It all started to come together for Russ especially. Russ was playing like he was the best player on the team.
Yeah.
That break did him no good.
No.
The break due to the pandemic, he came back and he was not the Russell Westbrook. He had the battle.
So
he had the battle with COVID himself.
Some of the words, was the COVID that he caught it pretty bad, and he
caught it pretty bad.
Yeah.
That from all sources that I had, mean, he was feeling it. He was feeling it for sure. And then he had the small injury there in the seeding games, and we missed him for a couple of games in the OKC series, and he never seemed to find his rhythm. I was 100% okay when he said, I want out of Houston. It's like, let's get rid of him. I don't really need him. You know what I mean? I like Russ. I think he might be one of the hardest players in the history of the NBA. This guy has one gear, and it's all the way, all the time. Yeah. And as a fan, especially the Rockets, who a lot of times get criticized for just standing around and letting Harden dribble, I like somebody who's going to be that energizer within the team of saying, no, we're not quitting. And that's really what CP3 was for us as well. Yeah. And then after the season was over, it's obvious we got to make a change. When Daryl Morey left, that was a big blow to the stomach. That was a big shot to the gut. And then he just walks across the street and goes to Philadelphia. How Fertitta let that happen, I'll never know. Yeah. And then D'Antoni wanted out of Houston so bad, he said, I'll take an assistant coaching job under a player I used to coach who's never coached before with the Nets, right? That's how bad he wanted out of Houston. And then when you have the Silas hire, which is cool, sure, I'm fine. Let's see what he's got. Right. But to do this and not loop in your star players that you're going to make the hire, not loop in the players about your GM pick. Those are really massive missteps. I don't think this has anything to do with Tillman Fertitta's allegiance to the soon-to-be former president of the United States, President Trump. I don't think that it has any political implications at all. They knew who this guy was for the last 2 or 3 years he's on. Exactly. I mean, he's been pretty vocal and open about his political allegiances. So I don't think that has anything to do with it. Right. I think it had to do, you're not asking us what we think. You're not looping us in. So when Harden requested the trade, I was, again, like you were saying, okay, let him go. I mean, it would hurt. But let's see what we can get back. Right. There's only one trade, really, out there that I would go for right now. I mean, if Harden is just like, I don't want to play, I'm not interested, you can't do anything to make me stay. I mean, they offered him that $50 million extension per season, and he said no to that. So it's like, if he's still in that mindset by the time the season starts, you're just going to have to throw this season away, right, essentially. But what would y'all think about this? I know he's injured right now, and that's the only – and I thought about this before he got hurt, but it would have been a great trade prior. And I think with him getting hurt, we can add some incentives to the package, a couple picks. Let's get a couple first-rounders, which we don't have anymore. Right. Let's get a couple first-round picks. 4. We give you James Harden. You give us Klay Thompson and a couple first-rounders.
I thought about that deal as well. When I thought – you give us their first-round pick that they just got and Klay Thompson for James Harden. But you just got to hope Klay Thompson is anywhere close to what he was, before.
2 years ago,
And that's the only thing that well, see, I thought about it right when they announced he wanted to go to the Nets. I was like, well, I don't see a trade for the Nets.
Yeah, they don't have anything.
They don't have anything that we want. You got a lot of young guys that maybe we could start a rebuild, but unless you want to do a give me Kyrie, you know what I mean? And we'll move Russ to the 2 if we still have Russ. But I don't want Kyrie. Not saying he's not a good player, but I'd rather keep James Harden. So I was thinking that the Klay Thompson trade would be interesting. But I think that James likes these 2 pickups. I think he likes Woods. I think he likes Boogie Cousins being on the team. I think that he's excited about this, and hopefully it's enough to get him to reconsider. If it's not, well, we're going to be in development hell for the next 3 or 4 years. I don't know if this has ever happened in the history of professional sports, where in a single calendar year, then 3 major sports teams, the Houston Rockets, the Astros, and the Texans, all had to fire or rehire or select new coaches and general managers for each of the 3 franchises. Coaches and GMs, all in a single season. This is insane what's going on in Houston sports right now. And it's really a historic moment in a year filled with them. But the whole thing with the Astros, Rockets, and the Texans right now is high theater. And for some teams who like to point and laugh at Houston, it's high comedy.
Right, it is. Oh, man.
So before we move on to the Texans, you were bringing up how did Morey get to leave? Don't forget that I guarantee you Tillman Fertitta caught a lot of heat from Maury's involvement and his support of Free Hong Kong speech, all the stuff in China.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't China cut off like NBA basketball when that happened?
They did.
So
and then they still will not show any Houston Rockets logo. They will Photoshop if like there's a picture of James Harden, they'll Photoshop the logo off of James Harden.
Wow. So that's a lot of money that the NBA gets, and when money's involved, things change.
Right.
So.
I just think that Tillman Fertitta is not a good owner overall.
Exactly.
He hasn't proven. He wanted to get out of the luxury tax. He didn't want to spend the money necessary. Now, I will give him credit for allowing Daryl Morey to make the trade for Russell Westbrook, which honestly, I love Daryl Morey. I've expressed this to him personally, how much of a genius I think that he is in regards to trades and how he's been able to construct this rosters team. I do think he had a couple big missteps in this last season.
Yeah.
I like the Robert Covington pickup, although Clint Capella, letting him go, I don't know how smart that was. You saw, especially in that Lakers series when we had no size, what they did to us. They just ran all over us. That's why Christian Woods and Boogie Cousins, I really like those pickups. Mm-hmm. It gives us some size with some guys who are also three-point threats. But the leaving, getting rid of Clint, I didn't love, but I understood it. But I think in retrospect, making the flip for CP3 for Russ, I don't know if I would have done that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have done that in retrospect. Mm-hmm. And when it was announced, I didn't like it.
Right.
But I said, well, you know what? These guys are friends with one another. They used to play together. They got to the finals together.
Exactly.
When they were on OKC, of course, they had Kevin Durant, which is a big shift in that direction when you have a guy like that. But anyway, he had a couple moves I didn't like. But I thought as soon as the China thing happened with the Hong Kong, I thought his days were numbered. I was enthused that Tillman seemed to always defend him in public. And even to the President of the United States. I don't know if you remember that. They were in some boardroom meeting, and President Trump asked Tillman Fertitta about Daryl Morey. And Tillman says, oh, well, no, he's definitely going to stay around. And Trump was like, well, he must be a hell of a guy at his job if you're going to keep him after all that. And he is. He's one of the greatest general managers in the history of basketball. I hate that we lost him, but we'll see. We'll see. Here's the thing. It's always nice to have a friend in enemy territory. And I think that Daryl might be a little bit friendly to Houston if there's some trade options on the table that make sense for both teams and would better both teams, especially given they're in two separate conferences.
Exactly.
And to give Daryl his due, if Chris Paul does not pull his hamstring in that Game 6 against Golden State, they win a championship that year.
Absolutely.
So
no doubt in my mind. And even with that, in Game 7, we had one of the most historically poor shooting performances, literally, of all time. I couldn't believe my eyes. But here's the thing. This is the thing that people forget about that Game 7. We lost by single digits.
Yeah.
We lost by single digits after going 0 for 27 from the three-point line. Yeah. That tells you how solid that team really was.
Right.
Yep. Now, looking at the Texans, when I first saw the schedule, the number that popped in my mind was they're going to go 2-5 to start the season. And I was pretty close.
Yeah.
Worst schedule any team could imagine.
Yeah.
So they kind of struggled, limped through the year. But then again, Bill O'Brien's thought and mentality, how he wanted to run those offenses, just it all came to a crashing halt. A change needed to be made. Change was made. Looking at the last few games, the Browns, Patriots, and Lions, you see some upside. You're seeing a lot of upside coming from Deshaun Watson on what he can do.
Yeah, this season's been pretty difficult to watch as a Texans fan. And I've gotten to that point, especially with the Texans, that because of all of the just idiotic moves by Bill O'Brien especially when he was in the general manager chair, obviously the cherry on top of that shit Sunday was the DeAndre Hopkins trade.
Oh yeah.
As everyone knows, probably one of the maybe one of the top 10 worst trades in NFL history, if not top 5. But I right now I'm at that point to where I'm happy to see Hopkins is now the highest paid non-QB position in the history of football. Like, I'm excited for him. I'm happy that he's doing well. I want to see guys like J.J. Watt get a ring around his finger. Yeah. I want to see guys like Deshaun Watson play for a competent team. I just don't know if they're ever going to be able to do that in a Houston Texans uniform. Right. Deshaun Watson, in the last 6 games, scored 16 touchdowns, threw for 16 touchdowns, 1,750 passing yards, and was 141 of 200 for a completion percentage of 71%. Wow. That's astronomical. That is. And let me add this. No turnovers in the last 6 games. Wow. This is an incredible human being that we have in the quarterback position, and we have but we have a largely incompetent team around him. Yeah. And that goes from the coaching staff on up as well.
Oh, yeah.
So what we can do, I don't know. Obviously, yes, we got to think smart in the draft. We got to think smart in the offseason. But I think the Texans is another one that's scarlet lettered for the time being, and I don't see a winning path in the future. Now, if they get back on track, sure, they'll win their division again, and blah 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 blah. But what does that really mean? You know, what does that really mean? It doesn't mean anything. It means we get in the first round of playoffs and we get knocked out pretty much every single year by Kansas City. It seems like Andy Reid's always kicking our ass somewhere. Exactly. So, I mean, it's nice to see that Deshaun's playing so well. And JJ, look, hey, man, I will say this. The team that showed up on Thanksgiving Day, if they play like that, right. I know they're playing the Lions. I understand. But if they can play like that and they can put 40 on the board, you're going to be able to compete with any team in the NFL. Exactly. If you can put 40 points on the board, it doesn't matter how bad your defense is. If you can put 40 points on the board, you're going to be in the game. No doubt about it, and you'll probably win. So I'm not giving up complete hope, but I do agree with the two of you of this season's pretty much a wash.
Yeah.
The Astros are still, I would say, a top 4 or 5 team next year.
Yeah, top 4.
Still have a chance at a World Series. Next year, it's going to depend on their bats, and they're going to have Alvarez, hopefully, for a whole season. That was a loss, I think, that hurt them this year, is we didn't have that big bat Alvarez in the playoffs. But Correa stepped up bigger in the playoffs. There's a lot of talk now that they won't have the money to keep him, so he could possibly be leaving soon. I think on the other side, like other guys on the team that rework their contracts because they like the team, I think he's a guy that would rework his contract to stay with the team. I think him and his wife both love it in Houston. I think he loves this team. He likes being the leader of this team. So I think he would be a guy that would cut a few million off each year just to stay with this team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would like to think so. I mean, remember a couple of years ago, Correa was actually in discussions of we might want to move him, to a different team. Remember, he wasn't performing well. Right. There was trade talks for a little while.
Kept getting hurt.
The injury thing around him. His bat wasn't performing well. You never had any of those issues with George Springer, which is why it does hurt to see him most likely leaving the team. But as you said, with a guy like Jordan, who had a phenomenal rookie season, just marred by bad timing and injuries for the second one, that happens to everybody, right? I mean, it's an athletic sport, so people are going to get hurt. Just happened to be his time to be called into the DL list. But I think that the Astros are always going to be right there, so long as we have great pitching and we have a solid 1 through 5 or even 1 through 4 on our lineup. We always have about 6 or 7 guys still who can hit the ball pretty well regardless. So I like that. Closing pitching has always frightened me with the Houston Astros, especially in the last several seasons. When you go back to Giles, when you go to Osuna, all the guys that we brought in, none of them have really had that pop that you would like. in a World Series contending team. I mean, long ago are the days where I remember going to Minute Maid Park, sitting there along the third base line, and the eighth inning, ninth inning comes around, and the lights go out, and here comes Brad Lidge walking to the mound. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was like, oh, and you already knew when he was walking to the mound, he's getting those routes. He's getting those outs. Yep. There's nothing y'all going to be able to do. So I miss those days. But if we could shore up our closing pitching and have a guy, I mean, obviously this is a silly thing to say, but if you have a guy like a Rivera historically who you could just have on the team for what feels like 20 years and always be reliable, that would be ideal. But we have, I'm so confident in our starting pitching rotation that even doesn't bother me as much, not being sure in the relief and closers.
Exactly.
You know, I think they have something for the future because next year, Verlander is gone for the whole year. We just saw McCullers. He had the same injury, missed the entire season, came back. McCullers didn't look like McCullers still halfway through. It's just such a tough injury to come back from. Yeah. But with his age and coming back from Tommy John surgery, I think the Astros should do what the Braves did to John Smoltz. Turn him into the closer, and he can pitch 2 to 3 innings, and you can get maybe another year or two out of his career.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I've never thought of that. But, here's the thing. For those things to work, it all comes down to one thing. Is the guy willing to do it? Right. Yeah. Right? Are they willing to take a different role within the team? Because being a starter carries a lot of prominence with it, right? You kind of walk around like, hey, man, I'm starting tomorrow. You know what I mean? I'll be starting tomorrow on the mound. Yeah, they got faith in me, right? And the closing pitcher still has that, but the closing pitcher, he never goes down, right, as the guy who really won you the game.
Exactly.
Even though he does a lot of times, he never gets the same pomp and circumstance that the starting pitcher is. And a guy who's been as phenomenal as Justin Verlander historically in his entire career throughout the Detroit Tigers years, and especially when he got to the Astros, and he was just on another level in that 17 season. Just playing ridiculous in that 17 season. Well, I don't know if he'd be willing to accept it, but if he can look at it like you just pitched it and say, this could extend my career a lot longer than it would if I was starting and only pitching every 4 days or whatever it is. I think that's a really interesting idea I haven't thought about.
Right.
Yeah. I think it would work, but just like you said, he would have to accept that because Smoltz, I remember hearing Smoltz say before, kind of like what you alluded to, he didn't want to do it, but he realized that's what he needed to do at the time. When he accepted that, John Smoltz was one of the best closers in baseball. All right, so that's our look at the local sports. We're going to get into reality of wrestling news here, which we've already talked about a little bit with the drive-in events. Yeah. What's coming up next? What do you guys have planned for 2021, or is there anything planned for December?
Yeah, December we do have our annual show. Christmas Chaos 15 will be going down December the 12th, live from the parking lot of the Booker T World Gym Arena, 7 o'clock. It's going to feature the first ever in our time reality wrestling championship match that's going to take place outdoors in a steel cage. You're going to see Ruthless Ryan Davidson, the Bear, defending that championship against the number one contender, the Savage King. That's going to be a great match. You're also going to see Gino taking on Edge Stone for the Reality Wrestling Television Championship. Roxy and Promise Braxton are going to be in action. And then Will All Day and a returning Rex Andrews for the Texas Championship. So a lot of cool stuff going down at the end of this year in the 12th. And then, man, coming up next year, there's some things going around. I don't know if any of y'all, if either one of you, heard the new album by Bad Bunny. But there is a track on the Bad Bunny album called Booker T, right? And it's a dope record. So, I've been trying to see, hey, maybe in 2021 we can do something a little co-branded action with Bad Bunny. You never know. That'd be pretty cool, man. That'd be pretty cool. So there are things in the works. For sure.
I like that.
I don't think that arena's big enough for Bad Bunny's fans.
No,
it'd have to be outside.
Now, here's the thing. So, I've always been a lover of all music, and Bad Bunny. I don't speak very much Spanish at all, if even at a little bit, maybe. And I understand very few words, but that really Bad Bunny and guys like him, and there's a few other Latin artists right now, Rosalia, who I think is really dope. Becky G. There's a few out right now who I don't know what they're saying, man, but I like the vibe that they bring.
It's all energy. I mean? It's all energy.
It's all energy. And that Booker T record, I only know the hook is, what is it? What does he say? Yo soy mi peak. Yo soy mi peak. Yo soy el rey campeón Booker T, right? Like I know what all that means, and the vibe that he brings is great. Bad Bunny's got a great delivery. He's got a great flow.
His voice is perfect for it,
his voice, man. That's like 90% of rap. If you've got the right voice, Jay, great voice. Ye, great voice. I was watching the Tyson fight last night, and Snoop, man, he's got the greatest voice still of all time. I was talking to someone today. I was like, do you realize Snoop Dogg on all his hit songs, he either counts or spells his name? That's all he ever does. But it's awesome. Every time he does it.
It works.
SNOOPDOGG. I mean, it's great. It's great. And he was so awesome last night on the fight. So Bad Bunny, definitely go stream that Booker T record. That song is really cool, man. Christmas Chaos will be going down Saturday, December the 12th. So not this Saturday, but the following. Second Saturday of the month. And hopefully, it doesn't matter to me, because at these drive-in shows, I'll tell you what, guys, this has been great, because I've been doing commentary with Booker for these shows. And one, it's incredible to do commentary with a legend like him, right?
Exactly.
Just to be able to call wrestling matches with a two-time Hall of Famer, a guy who my first wrestling show ever was at the Toyota Center in 2006, and the main event was Booker T versus Rey Mysterio for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Oh, man.
So to go from that to sitting right next to him and calling championship wrestling matches is pretty cool. But my favorite part is everyone's outside. The boys have to wrestle outside, and we know it's pretty humid in Houston, so people are out there sweating and slipping, and the ropes are all wet and with humidity. And Booker just drives his RV up, parks it right next to the ring, and we sit in the AC and we do the commentary.
That's what we were
it's
trying
the greatest gig of all time.
Yeah, we couldn't figure out where y'all were at first until we saw the RV. Like, they're hiding in the RV.
Oh, God, what a great gig. What a great gig that it was. So definitely, hopefully, though, in December, it's not too cold for the boys and girls to go out there and wrestle. You never know with Houston. Right now, it's nice and chilly. But that's definitely going down. And check out the Reality Wrestling YouTube channel, because we just passed 400,000 subscribers a couple of weeks ago. Y'all been with us for this whole journey. And y'all know when it was like, 10,000 subscribers and maybe 500 views or something like that.
How many people we got? We got 20 people watching right now.
Right now, 20, yes.
Hey, man, and those 20 are going to turn 200 to 2,000 to 20,000 to 200,000. And you see it grow. And it's just the thing that where we were successful was consistency.
Exactly.
People knew we were always going to be there. And that was why it was really important during the pandemic to continue, with the wrestling as much as we could, because, we had to stay consistent. We had to grow the channel. So passing 400,000 subscribers is awesome. And so go check out all the content that we have on there. And also, Booker and I show the Hall of Fame. We do it live on YouTube over there, and as well as ESPN 975 and 925 in Houston. So definitely go check that out.
Definitely.
Yep. Alex Garcia, who's come to ROW now for what? It's been a little over a year now. We've been seeing her. Close to 2 years.
Yeah, maybe close to 2. Yeah, maybe close to 2.
She's been getting some love over at AEW, doing some dark matches. So big ups to her getting on there, getting on. Hopefully we'll get to see her on a broadcast.
Yeah, she's so good, man. I mean, Alex is somebody who, when she came in, You knew, okay, obviously she got a great look to her. She had the all pink everything kind of thing going on. She knew her character, and it was just getting her personality was already there. And it was just getting her in-ring work to match that persona. Mm-hmm. And she's someone who would drive in from San Antonio several days a week just to come and train at the reality wrestling school. And to have that amount of dedication is incredible. And then she went over to Japan, learned her craft in Japan a little bit, came back, moved to Houston so that she could be here on a more consistent basis, learn under the tree of guys like Booker T, the Ruthless Ryan Davidsons, the Mysterious Q's, the Genos of the world, really fine-tune that craft. And then she got that look in AEW, and she knew this was her opportunity. Now, her first match over there, she'll tell you it didn't go the way that she planned, but persistence pays in this industry, man, and with any industry. As long as you keep at it, you get back up and you go again, people are going to notice that. People are going to really respect that. And she's been doing great things over at AEW. Hopefully, she becomes more regular, and we see her on Wednesday Night Dynamite, mixing it up with their division. But who knows what the future holds for her, man? But I got a lot of love for her and real high hopes for Alex Garcia.
There you go.
So we're going to get into some boxing news right now. Of course,
right up your alley.
Biggest boxing news for the past few months was Canelo's exit of the $365 million contract.
Yeah.
5 years, 11 fights. The rumors were that DAZN wanted more input on the next opponents. Canelo's opponents under the contract had been Rocky Fielding, Daniel Jacobs, and Kovalev, of course. And Jacobs and Kovalev, of course, weren't, in their prime. They were on the downward towards the end of their careers. But I think the big thing with this was I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it was something like $30 or $35 million right out the gate. It could have even been more. Right out the gate, automatically goes to Canelo and Golden Boy.
Wow.
So on DAZN's end, they were saying, all right, well, we're already negative this many million before the fight starts. So we need to make sure we're getting subscribers and people buying this. And I think the contract was just too big. If they're not going to be giving Canelo the type of fights that people want to see, I mean... Right. And I don't even know who's out there that could give Canelo that type of draw right now. So
as far as for Canelo, I here's the thing. I knew when I saw that he was like the highest paid athlete of all time, or signed the biggest contract up to the Patrick Mahomes deal, obviously. But prior to that, I thought there's no way he's seeing this money. There's just no way. Because it was such an astronomical figure. And I understand that Canelo, especially in certain Latin American countries, Mexico being the highest, is a major draw, like a massive draw. And in the U.S., I'm not diminishing his U.S. draw, but his appeal really is abroad, and that's why you give him that much money, because you think he can reach the billion people in Latin America. Right. You look at him like all the great Spanish fighters that came before him, even someone like a Roberto Duran, you look at him like the next draw for the next decade in boxing for the Latin American community. Right. I just knew that he wasn't going to get paid that because of what y'all just said. Who is he going to fight that's going to garner $375 million? There's nobody out there for him right now. Wow. The Kovalev fight was the only one of those three that interests me, and he was past his prime. Exactly. I knew what the result was going to be. I lost a little bit of respect for Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya's promotion style. First, after they robbed Gennady Golovkin twice.
I was upset.
Twice. Twice. They upset this man twice. Why Triple G ever agreed to that second fight to take place under the same promotion and everything as before, I'll never know. But regardless of that fact, after those two Triple G fights, there was really nothing out there for Canelo. There's nothing out there for him. So I knew that $375 million wasn't going to come through. And I 100% agree with DAZN. I'm like, look, man, I can't do this right now. I just can't do it because you're not letting me promote a fight that's going to make me money.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, I'm the one putting my name on front of your check, right? I'm the one signing it.
Yeah.
Let me try to get a promotion together that's actually going to draw a crowd. I mean, I don't know what the pay-per-view buys were on last night's fight. I'm sure we're about to get into that.
Yeah.
But that is how you draw a crowd, right? That's how you draw a pay-per-view audience, right? You put something on television that people want to see.
Yes.
I don't want to see Canelo versus Kovalev again.
No.
I don't want to see Canelo versus whoever else you're going to put in there with him.
Right.
Because right now there's just not a lot of guys out there in his weight class. Now he's someone who's shown that he'll move up and down so long as it makes sense.
Right.
But I don't see it for him. So that $375 million, man, I knew he wasn't going to see that much.
Yeah. So the next big fight coming up is Earl Spence against Garcia. The winner of this fight is supposedly going to get Crawford, or even Pacquiao's name is being floated as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the big thing about this is, okay, it's going to be in Dallas Stadium. Should be a massive crowd. Earl Spence, who is one of the top, some people would say could be top pound for pound, if not Terrence Crawford, maybe. But Earl Spence 8 months ago was in a horrific crash in a Ferrari. If you have not seen the pictures, I think there's even video of the crash itself. The Ferrari rolled like 3, 4, 5 times.
Wow.
I believe he broke a whole bunch of bones in his face, jaw, maybe. I don't remember exactly what the injuries were, but the crash itself is one thing. You know, fixing your body is one thing. I guarantee you there's a mentality thing now as well. Is he in the right set of mind, physically, mentally, to go into a fight of this caliber against Danny Garcia and hope to win is the question.
Yeah.
Why wasn't the fight pushed off? Making sure he's okay. Is it the whole thing like we were talking about early? Is it too much money? The stadium's already booked. The pay-per-view is already set. The date's already set. We can't stop it. It's all about the money. Is it the right thing for him to go into this fight after a horrific crash like that just 8 months ago?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and you never know though. And that's the thing. Like, I remember hearing a story about Ric Flair was in a plane crash.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They were in a private plane. He was in a crash. He got injured pretty significantly, especially in his back. And he was told, I think, that, you might not ever wrestle again, blah, 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 blah. We've heard the story before. And he said when he got back to the ring, he didn't know if he was ready. But every time that he would go and someone would try to give him a backdrop, where he's going to land flat on his back, he would always turn and try to land on his shoulder because he had that fear in the back of his mind. Man, if I hit my back the wrong way, I could re-injure myself and I could find myself in a position to where I'm not going to wrestle anymore. So he couldn't wrestle his normal style, right?
Yeah. Wow.
He couldn't wrestle his normal style because he was so afraid of that re-injury. I think the same thing for Errol Spence. It's a possibility that when he gets out there in Dallas Stadium and he's standing across the ring from Danny Jacobs, Danny might go for something and Errol Spence have a little PTSD. You know what I mean? And I'm being serious. And he's like, oh, no, don't hit me there. Don't hit me there. That spot took a real long time to heal. And it might throw him off. Now, the only thing that he has going for him is that he's Errol Spence Jr.
Right.
And he's a bad, bad man, right? 8 months, I don't know if that's long enough to recover from one of the craziest configurations of a Ferrari I've ever seen after an accident. I mean, that thing was contorted in ways I didn't even know were possible, that metal could bend like that.
Yeah.
But I think that he can pull it off. I have faith in him. I was at his last fight in Los Angeles with Showtime Sean Porter, and that guy is a special talent. Errol Spence is a special talent, man, and he hit you at that left. It could be a real long night for Danny Jacobs, and I got love for Danny Garcia.
Yeah.
I got love for Danny Garcia, but I don't think that he really wants to really get into those later rounds with a guy like Errol Spence, even after a Ferrari accident. I think that Errol is probably still the overwhelming. I haven't looked at the betting odds, but I'm sure he's the overwhelming favorite, even still. And I think that a fight for him after this against Terrence Crawford, Terrence Crawford's a guy who will fight you southpaw. Yeah. So will Manny Pacquiao. So will Errol Spence. So I like any of those matchups for them. I love when I see two southpaws fight one another. I think it's great. I love that stuff. So I think that either one of the potential future opponents for Errol Spence would be great. I think Errol Spence gets the job done. Right. But I do think that there might be a little trepidation on his side of, I don't want to hurt myself after I just got back to feeling normal again.
Exactly.
And Terrence Crawford just had his fight a couple weeks ago. 4th round KO, no problem.
That was a little warm up for him.
It was. It was.
So let's talk about the fight we all saw last night. First off, I'm going to say I can't stand the draw decision. I clearly had Mike winning that 5 rounds to 3 at the least.
Minimum.
Roy Jones, as soon as Mike came in on attack, wrap up, push off, try to throw the one shot, kept wrapping up. Mike couldn't really get into any multiple punch thrown combinations because of all the wrapping up. But I don't remember Jones fighting that style.
Right.
When he fought with that much wrapping up. I remember him fighting, the pock shots and the ducking and diving all the time. But I think he was really just scared of Tyson getting hit by Mike Tyson after all the videos that were coming and Mike Tyson's training videos, and he was showing that power. But I think hands down that Mike won that fight 5 rounds to 3.
Yes.
Yeah, Mike won the fight. Mike knows he won the fight. That's why he was okay with the draw. For Mike Tyson, I'm okay with the draw. Already that he's like, okay, well, I won the fight and I proved my point.
Right.
Mike, even at 54 years old, he still looked like Mike, man.
Yeah.
He still had the same stance. His footwork may not have been as fluid, right? And even his movement didn't look as fluid. But sometimes when he go in there and he tried to start to land a combination on Roy,
right,
and he had that old school Tyson head movement, right, where he still looked like he did in the mid 90s. And it was really impressive. It was impressive to see. I think there was a couple of things that I got wrong about this fight. I thought when they made it from 3 rounds to 3-minute rounds to 2-minute rounds, I thought that would benefit Mike. In the long run, I actually think it hurt Mike. I think it benefited Roy because Roy was sucking wind after the first round. Roy was sweating. He was sucking wind. He looked tired on his stool. Mike was standing for the first half of the break after the first round. He was still ready to go, which told me Mike was starting to find his rhythm. And every time he'd start to find it, boom, bell would ring, right? Every time he got Roy in a little bit of deep water, boom, bell would ring. So I think that those 3-minute rounds, 2-minute rounds actually hurt Mike because, again, I thought that he would, after 15 years outside the ring and being 54 years of age, I'm thinking he's not going to have the same stamina.
Right.
And that Roy, who just fought 3 years ago, is going to have a little bit better gas tank. But I was wrong about that. I think that Mike obviously had the better gas tank in that fight.
He took it more serious.
He definitely took it more serious, and he went in there to fight.
He did.
And I think you heard his corner at one time say, the referee came over, and I think he said, we're going to the 7th round, I think is what he said. And Mike's corner said, we can go 15 if you need to. Right? And I was like, he looks like he could.
Yeah.
Now, this whole 100-pound thing, I find a little interesting that Mike lost 100 pounds for this fight because I saw him in February. I went to the Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury fight in Vegas, and I got the opportunity to holler at Mike for a second. And Booker and I went over to talk to Mike, and Mike's still there. He didn't look overweight at all. He looked in pretty good shape. So I wonder when it was that they clocked this weight loss journey of his, because he looked pretty good in February.
Wow.
And I don't know if boxing was even on his mind in February. So that I don't know when he lost that 100 pounds, but I will tell you this. it doesn't matter if he's 54 years of age. Even when I was standing next to Mike having a polite conversation, he's still Mike Tyson. And you're still a little bit uneasy around him.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and he was the nicest guy in the world. So, hey, Booker, how's it going? Hey, oh, yes, hey, it's nice to meet you. You know,
Right.
He was nice as can be. But I was still afraid for my life a little bit. You know what I mean? So and Roy Jones looked like he was afraid for his life.
He did.
At a couple moments. You know what I mean?
Sure
He really looked like, oh, I didn't think it was going to be like this.
Right. I thought it was just showing up. He's just showing up.
I thought I was just showing up. We're going to have a friendly little, pa.
Exactly.
But Mike came in trying to knock his head off. And you heard him say it in the pre-match interview where he was like, I'm just going to go out there and protect myself and throw as many punches with bad intentions as I can.
Exactly.
He went out there to fight.
He did.
And he was ready to go all night long. I think he probably won 6 rounds to 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as far as Snoop's commentary, I can see why some people who are maybe boxing purists might be annoyed by it. But this wasn't a fight for boxing purists. The same way that Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor wasn't a fight for boxing purists.
Right.
It was a interest. It was a public interest fight.
Yeah.
It was entertainment.
Yeah.
We just wanted to see Mike put gloves on and see if he can knock somebody out in his mid-50s. And when Snoop said, these remind me of 2 of my uncles at the barbecue fighting each other, that was hilarious. And it was accurate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was accurate. And I love the biasness of Snoop. He wanted Roy to win. You could tell that. He was even better in the Jake Paul and Nate Robinson fight. Yeah. Oh, my God. He was so funny in that. He was saying, Nate, he's got his basketball shoes on. Slow down, nephew. Slow down. You know what I mean?
Right.
He was great. So Snoop is the consummate entertainer. I actually got to watch the fight with my father, who's in his mid-70s. And I turned to my dad as as Snoop's doing his set, and he's dropping like it's hot or nothing but a G thing or whatever he was doing, right? And my father looked over at me. He goes, you just gotta love Snoop Dogg. You know what I mean? Like, and a 75-year-old Caucasian male from Waco, Texas, if he likes Snoop Dogg, you know what I mean?
Come on,
then Snoop's all right.
There you
know
go.
What I mean?
Exactly.
So I enjoyed Snoop. Snoop really won the night for me, as he did for a lot of people. I think.
So that Jake Paul Nate Robinson fight was the talk of the town. That was. Jake Paul, this is what, his 3rd or 4th fight now? So it's his 2nd, but the Paul brothers, I think, have done 4. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I get them mixed up all the time.
Right.
Because I don't know all the popular YouTubers.
Yeah.
Jake and Logan Paul aren't really high on my to-do list, right? But I think, this is Jake Paul's 2nd fight.
Yeah, and he's already calling out Canelo of today. Saying boxing is only big because of him after this knockout of Nate Robinson. But I'd say let's do a 1-on-1 with Jake Paul and Nate Robinson now on a basketball court.
Exactly. See how many dunks he can get.
Man, Nate had no business being out there. Oh my gosh.
He didn't. Exactly.
It was dirty, man.
It was.
It was just so dirty to see him. It was
hard to watch.
It was hard to watch. He got flatlined. And I saw, and here's the thing, I saw that overhand right coming from a mile away. And it got him right on the kisser, man. And he went night-night.
Yep.
Remember when Manny got knocked out?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And Manny was just flat-faced, right?
Yep.
This was worse.
Oh, man.
This was so much worse. This was terrible, man. And Nate Robinson was tweeting all the NBA players and saying, how, he's going to shock the world tonight, man. I'm going to shock the world. And he's tweeting Steph Curry, I'm going to shock the world, Steph.
Sure
and then
did.
Steph just replies and be like, well, you did.
Yeah, sure did. In a big way.
He definitely shocked the world, man.
And the internet did not let Nate Robinson even have an hour. I mean, there was thousands of memes already out. So I don't know if we're going to see Nate Robinson back in the ring after that. I hope not, especially when you get knocked out like that.
Yeah.
Oof. When you get knocked out, and wasn't it like a 4-round exhibition?
Yeah.
Wasn't it supposed to be like 4 rounds or something?
6
like
rounds.
That?
6 rounds, yeah.
6 rounds. Okay. You got knocked out in the second round of a 6-round fight.
And that was his third knockdown? I think he got knocked down twice.
Yeah, he got knocked down twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This isn't the one for you. You know what I mean? Just hold on to those 3 slam dunk titles that you won in a year and be happy with life.
There you go.
He can go play basketball in China.
Yeah, go play in the Big 3 league if that's still a thing. Like, go do something like that, man. Like, you don't need to be out there. And I was worried for him for a second. You know what I mean? I mean, he was stiff as a board and not moving. It was very bothersome for a moment, and it just tells you, like, this isn't a game. You know what I mean? This isn't playing Monopoly. Right. This is it can be a life and death type sport. I mean, ask Boom Boom Mancini how real boxing is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With Dooku Kim, ask him how that turned out. Right. I mean, that man's got to live with that for the rest of his life. So this is a sport with real consequences, and I'm now even more wary about letting a celebrity fight happen. Unless there's tremendous headgear involved, I don't want to see this again.
Yeah, I got you. All right, so that is our first SLM podcast show. I want to thank Brad Gilmore from ESPN and Reality of Wrestling for joining us. We appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully, we will be back with you at the Reality of Wrestling shows soon. I know you guys are working on a skeleton crew over there, just like everybody else with the whole COVID situation. But we hope to bring you back on the show. We're going to have more Reality of Wrestling people on there. We're, of course, going to get Booker and Charmel.
Oh, yeah.
And Kevin will be on here, and we'll be getting with the wrestlers from time to time and have them tell you what's going on in their world. But once again, Brad, appreciate you. Thank you for being a part of the first test episode here on the SLM podcast.
Yes, sir.
And for everybody listening, we'll be bringing you another SLM podcast next week. So we will see you then. And if you have any stories on the dark hour that you want to tell, just message us. Skype it to me, whatever. We'll get you on here and we can get you to discuss your dark hour story.
Yes, sir.
So thank you guys. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Brad.